Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really quite different. It's called the UPM Declaration, that stands for Unity, Peace, Meditation.
Hmm.
And it's not your typical report. It offers this, well, radical take on where we are globally. It asks this huge question: what if the real fix for climate collapse, for war, for inequality,
Mm.
what if it isn't just tech or politics? What if it's about consciousness?
Yeah, it's a fascinating angle. The UPM declaration basically says, look, we've been ignoring the inner work required. It positions meditation not as some kind of luxury, or an escape,
Right.
but as a fundamental necessity, an awakening needed for us to even survive as a species.
Mm.
The argument is that our biggest threat is actually internal. All the crises we see out there, they say it stems from a crisis of consciousness.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to give you the rundown on this declaration. We'll unpack its diagnosis of why things are so messed up, look at the solution it proposes, and then explore its, well, pretty ambitious three-pillar plan for a global shift, all centered around meditation.
Sounds good. And that diagnosis, as you said, it's quite direct.
Let's jump into it. What's the core problem according to UPM?
So their main point is surprisingly simple, really. They argue that all the big external problems, climate change, war, poverty, ecological destruction, they all flow from one internal root cause,
Yeah.
the illusion of separation. They say
Right.
this feeling of being separate individuals, separate groups, separate from nature. It's an illusion created and constantly reinforced by our own egoistic minds.
And they get specific about how the mind does this, right? Creating suffering.
Yes, they do. It starts with this very basic binary thinking. Me versus you, us versus them.
Yeah, you see it everywhere. My company's profit versus, say, the river's health, my nation's security versus refugees needing safety, humanity versus nature itself. We draw these lines constantly.
Exactly. Conceptual battle lines, like you said. And then the second mechanism they point to is this almost constant feeling of insatiable craving.
Wanting more.
Always more. More money, more power, more stuff, more status. Trying to fill this inner emptiness with external things. It just fuels this endless consumption cycle that, the planet clearly can't sustain.
And that cycle runs on fear, doesn't it?
That's the third driver they identify, fear-based living. This idea that there isn't enough to go around, so I have to grab mine. It's a scarcity mindset.
A zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Your gain is my loss.
Precisely, which leads to this desperate need to control everything, everyone. So the UPM connects this whole internal pattern, separation, craving, fear, directly to what we see happening now. 1 million species going extinct, hundreds of millions in extreme poverty while wealth gets concentrated, skyrocketing anxiety, addiction.
And their conclusion is stark.
Yeah, they basically say this suffering is unnecessary. It's the result of a fundamental mistake in how we perceive reality, an internal error.
Wow. Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, suffering rooted in the illusion of separation, what's the cure? You mentioned meditation.
Right. The Declaration claims meditation provides the antidote. But importantly, not just as an idea, it offers 4 direct experiential insights. It's about moving beyond just thinking about solutions to actually knowing them directly.
Okay, so bypassing the intellect. What are these 4 big discoveries meditation supposedly unlocks?
Well, the first one they detail is interconnection, or unity. This is the direct experience that the self isn't some fixed, separate entity. It's more like a constantly changing process. And those boundaries we perceive, our skin, national borders, they're just concepts, really.
Can you give an example they use?
Yeah, they use some beautiful ones, like my breath is the gift of the trees. My body is made of the earth elements, just cycling through. When you feel that, the idea of being separate starts to dissolve.
Okay, so unity first. What follows that?
Sufficiency or peace. Once that feeling of separation starts to fade, so does the constant need for more.
Freedom from craving.
Exactly. You discover an inner sense of enoughness. That happiness isn't about getting more stuff. It's about being present with what is. The UPM actually calls contentment a radical act.
Radical.
Because if billions of people suddenly realize they have enough, the whole economic system based on endless growth and extraction, well, it would fundamentally change. It undermines the whole premise.
That makes sense. Okay, unity, sufficiency. What's the third discovery?
Compassion or love. This flows pretty naturally from interconnection. If you genuinely feel connected to others, helping them isn't some altruistic chore. It's like helping yourself.
Because there's no real separation.
Right. And understanding why people suffer the pressures, the fears they're under, it dissolves blame. Forgiveness becomes easier. They connect this to the idea of ahimsa, harmlessness. You wouldn't knowingly harm another being because, on some level, that being is you.
And the fourth discovery.
Present moment, or power. This is about grounding your awareness in the here and now.
How does that give you power?
It frees you from being controlled by the past. Regrets just become lessons learned. And it frees you from anxiety about the future, which hasn't happened yet. This stability, they argue, allows you to act consciously, thoughtfully, instead of just reacting automatically based on old patterns or fears.
Okay, so diagnosis, separation illusion, prescription, meditation revealing unity, sufficiency, compassion, and presence. Now, how do they propose actually implementing this, the three pillars?
Exactly. Pillar 1 is the foundation, daily personal meditation and action. And they're very clear this isn't tied to any specific religion. It's framed as universal mental training.
Training attention, opening the heart, seeing clearly something anyone can do.
That's the idea. Works for atheists, scientists, religious folks, everyone. And they provide a specific structure, a 20-minute daily practice.
Okay, break that down for us.
It's split into 2 sessions. First, the morning unity meditation. This starts with bringing awareness to the body, like feeling the fact that you're about 70% water, or that your atoms were forged in stars.
Wow.
Then, awareness of the breath, realizing you're sharing this air right now with every other breathing creature on the planet.
And the expanding circle part sounds key here.
It really is. You consciously extend that feeling of connection outwards, from yourself to your family, your community, your country, and then further to include animals, plants, the whole earth.
And it ends with a specific intention.
Yes, a silent wish. May all beings be happy, peaceful, free from suffering. The goal is to shift your felt sense of identity from being just this isolated person to feeling part of the whole web of life.
And what about the evening practice? That's shorter, 15 minutes.
Right, the evening peace meditation. This one's more about integration and letting go. You mentally review your day, but without judging yourself. Just noticing moments where you acted from that sense of unity versus times you acted out of fear or separation.
And then release.
Exactly. Visualizing, releasing regrets about the day, worries about tomorrow, letting them dissolve. And it finishes with gratitude, consciously thanking the sun, the earth, your body, even your ancestors. It kind of sets you up for restful sleep.
But it's not just about the formal sitting practice, is it? Pillar 1 also includes meditation in action.
Crucial point, yes. The UPM stresses applying this awareness throughout the day. Little mindful moments.
Like what? Give us an example.
Okay, like pausing for maybe just 30 seconds before you eat. Really seeing the food, thinking about the sun, the soil, the water, the farmers, all the interconnectedness that brought it to your plate.
That's simple.
Or maybe more challenging, pausing before you jump into an argument or conflict. Taking 3 conscious breaths and asking yourself silently, what's this person really feeling underneath their words, and what do we both actually need right now?
That could change a lot of interactions.
It really could. It turns everyday life into the practice field.
Okay, so that's the individual groundwork, but the UPM vision is global. How do pillars 2 and 3 scale this up? Let's start with pillar 2, collective meditation.
Right. This is where the numbers get. Oh, ambitious. They propose weekly peace circles. These are local groups, maybe 10 people, maybe 100, getting together.
Doing what?
They start with some grounding, maybe a guided unity practice together.
Yeah.
But the core is the sharing circle afterwards. Each person shares one challenge they're facing, one insight they've had, and one concrete commitment to action they'll take that week.
Ah, so it connects inner work directly to local action, like community projects.
Exactly. Starting a community garden, organizing local cleanups, supporting each other. It bridges the inner and outer.
And then there's the really big one, the monthly Global Planetary Peace Day.
This is the synchronized global event. The vision is, frankly, staggering. 8 billion people pausing together.
How would that even work?
It's time for noon local time on the first Sunday of each month. So it creates this wave of silence and unified intention moving around the planet.
A 30-minute pause. What's the intended focus?
Unified intention. Visualizing the earth healing, imagining borders becoming less important, focusing on peace spreading. And they actually cite research here.
Oh.
Yeah, the Maharishi effect studies. These claim that large groups meditating together, specifically the square root of 1% of a population, can measurably reduce things like crime rates and violence in the surrounding area.
So they're suggesting the synchronized global pause could have tangible effects on conflict.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
They see it as harnessing a collective power through synchronized stillness and intention.
It's a huge leap. But okay, if intention scales like that, the next logical step is policy, pillar 3, meditation in governance.
Yes, and this is where it gets really structurally radical. They call for contemplative policymaking.
Meaning?
For starters, proposing that all legislatures, parliaments, city councils, they should begin each day's session with 50 minutes of universal secular mindfulness practice. Just silence.
Has that been tried anywhere?
They mentioned some examples, yeah. Apparently, the UK Parliament has experimented with mindfulness sessions, and some state legislatures, like in Oregon, have too. The idea is to reduce reactivity, improve listening, maybe foster wiser decisions.
But it goes beyond just starting the day with silence, doesn't it? There's a framework for laws.
Absolutely. The three questions framework. The proposal is that before any law is passed, policymakers must formally meditate on it using these three questions.
What are they?
First, the unity question. How does this policy affect the whole system, ecological, social, global, not just my constituents or my party?
Okay, forces a wider view.
Second, the peace question. Does this actually reduce suffering for all beings involved? And that explicitly includes non-human beings and the environment.
A strong check against exploitation. And the third?
The seven generations question, which draws heavily on indigenous wisdom. Will our descendants, looking back 200 years from now, thank us for making this decision?
Wow, that demands incredibly long-term thinking, way beyond the usual election cycle.
Totally. It forces a perspective shift. And this contemplative approach naturally leads into their ideas on meditative economics.
Which involves moving away from GDP.
Definitely. A complete shift from gross domestic product to gross national happiness, or G&H.
Why is G&H the outcome of meditation?
Because if you achieve that inner sense of sufficiency we talked about earlier, then just measuring economic transactions, GDP, becomes kind of meaningless, right? It doesn't measure actual well-being.
So what does G&H measure according to UPM?
They list key indicators: physical health, clean air, water. Mental well-being, are depression and anxiety rates falling? Social cohesion, how much trust is there in communities? Ecological health, biodiversity increasing? And spiritual well-being, do people have time for rest, for meaning, for connection?
Including time for rest and meaning as an economic indicator that really challenges our current work culture.
It absolutely does. It redefines success. They specifically advocate for a sufficiency economy model.
What does that entail?
It's based on moderation, reasonableness, and building resilience, what they call self-immunity. Basically, if people realize they have enough, the economy shifts from endless extraction towards local regeneration, sustainability, and genuine well-being, rather than just relentless growth.
Okay, the vision is huge. But the declaration argues these inner shifts create real, measurable change quite quickly, this ripple effect. How do they justify that?
They try to show it scaling up. At the individual level, they claim that simple conscious choices driven by this awareness, eating less meat, sharing rides, not buying the latest phone just because it's new, can slash a person's carbon footprint significantly, maybe 50, 70%, without feeling like deprivation.
Just mindful consumption.
Right, then scale it up. They project that if, say, 10 million people in a country are practicing regularly, their priorities change. They start voting differently, demanding policies like carbon taxes, ending fossil fuel subsidies. Politicians have to respond.
And globally.
The argument is that hitting a threshold, maybe 1 billion practitioners globally, triggers a major shift in social norms. They compare it to how quickly norms around smoking changed in the early 2000s.
So things like massive defense budgets could be redirected.
That's the vision.
Yeah.
Redirected towards planetary healing, regeneration, because the underlying drivers of conflict would be weakening.
Of course, the immediate reaction for many listening might be, come on, that sounds lovely, but it's a utopian fantasy. You'll never get everyone meditating. How does the UPM address that skepticism?
They tackle it directly, citing research on critical mass tipping points. The key point they stress is, you don't need everyone.
Just enough people.
Exactly. The research they reference suggests that when about 10% of a population adopts a new behavior or awareness, it starts to shift the entire social norm. They actually project hitting that 10%, about 800 million people globally by 2030.
And what happens then?
Once you reach around 15%, the research suggests the shift becomes basically unstoppable. The new way becomes the default. Their really audacious goal is hitting 6 billion practitioners by 2050.
Leading to?
They project dramatic drops, 60 to 80% reductions in violence, crime, abuse, and cutting the global mental health crisis potentially in half.
Big numbers. And what about people who are wary of this sounding too religious or woo?
They're careful to frame it as a secular practice, almost like mental fitness. They point to neuroscience.
Brain scans and things.
Yeah, studies showing measurable changes in the brain from regular meditation. like thickening of the prefrontal cortex, which helps with focus and decision-making, and shrinking of the amygdala, the fear center,
So there's a scientific case, too.
and psychological benefits, studies showing significant reductions in anxiety stress. They present it as a practical tool with empirical backing, separate from any belief system.
So bringing it all together, the declaration doesn't just outline the problem and solution, it asks for a commitment, the UPM pledge.
Yes, it culminates in a personal pledge focused on 3 core actions. First, practice.
Hmm.
Commit to sitting daily, even briefly, and pausing before reacting in daily life.
Okay.
Second, live VE. Make conscious choices about consumption. Try to act from love and interconnection rather than fear or separation.
Makes sense.
And third, advocate. Share the benefits of meditation with others and support leaders and policies that reflect this kind of unity consciousness.
It really grounds the whole grand vision in individual daily choices.
It does. And they emphasize that this core message, unity, love, and the primacy of inner work for outer change, isn't new. They point out it's the common thread running through Buddhism, Christianity, indigenous wisdom, even secular humanism. It's a universal insight, they argue.
The declaration ends with a powerful line, "The future is a meditation we practice together." Thinking about that monthly planetary peace day, that level of coordination, 8 billion people pausing at noon local time, it's mind-boggling. It really makes you wonder, could transforming our world depend less on the next big invention and more on billions of us finding alignment in a shared moment of silence? That's definitely something to sit with.